Hello, I'm going to review One Life 2023. This stars Anthony Hopkins as Nicholas Winton. The film starts in 1987 when he's an older man by this point. He's probably in his 70s. I gather he lived till 106. So in 1987, it's about October, his wife says that he needs to clear out his study. He's got lots of files and papers and let go of things. And I just found that so sad. I guess that letting go of things is part of life, but I love historical artifacts, elements of our memory, things that jog our memory, sentimental stuff. But his story is much more detailed and complicated than that, because we get to see him as a much younger man in the 1930s. Nicholas Winton was a stockbroker. He worked in finance in the City of London, but he was very concerned about the plight of people in Czechoslovakia, where Jewish people were being persecuted by the Nazis. Nazi Germany was invading neighbouring countries like Czechoslovakia, and Britain at the time was appeasing the aggression. This emboldened Nazi Germany. They were persecuting Jewish people. They went on to persecute many other people, trade unionists, LGBTQ people, people of colour, anyone who was different, othering. We're one human race. And yet, over the decades, especially in times of crisis, politicians often use tactics of divide and rule, blaming minorities for the economic situation or the other crises that people face. So Nicholas Winton went over to Czechoslovakia and attempted to arrange for the rescue of people. He worked with a team of other people. Originally, he met some resistance. People he talked to wondered, why do you want to help? And some of his background was revealed at that point. I love how the story is told in this film. There's threat and there's violence. There's no gore as such. And yet the sense of menace and threat of what it must have felt like to live at that time is palpable. I really like that when a film conveys that sort of feeling. You feel like you're actually in that time, you're in that moment. And at times I could feel like I was in that position as one of the people helping to rescue, or one of the people fleeing from the Nazis. The parents, father telling his children to run away because he was worried that Nicky was a Nazi. At any moment, there was a real worry, and many people, 6 million people, died in the Holocaust. It's not something we should ever forget. This film conveys that message, how they managed to get papers. There was resistance in Britain because politicians and the tabloids would argue. The crucial element was that every refugee needed to be sponsored, so there needed to be enough households in Britain welcoming the refugees to help look after them. Also, a payment of £50, which was a lot of money back then, to cover the costs of their eventual return, repatriation back to Eastern Europe after the war. So many hurdles, such a difficult thing to arrange, but with perseverance, Nicky and the other people he worked with were able to do something. And there's a second element to the storyline, which is back in 1987 and into 1988, when That's Life, a programme that was very popular in the 70s and 80s in Britain. It covered both silly and serious subjects. It was dismissed by Mrs. Winton when Nicky gets invited to go on the show. She says, isn't it a silly show? I remember in 1979 there was a dog that said sausages. There were always daft things like weird-shaped carrots featured, but lots of daft silly elements of life. And then there were really serious topics, some really, really heavy subjects covered in that show. And Esther Ransom, she's in the news again at the moment. She's got terminal cancer and she's campaigning for laws here to allow assisted dying. Back then she was a star running the show with a few other people, and she invites Nicky Winton along. I think his family felt that he'd been ambushed the first occasion because they arranged for him to meet a survivor. But then there's a second episode where Mr. and Mrs. Winton both go along and they get to meet so many people who wouldn't have existed, who wouldn't be alive if it hadn't been for the efforts. So One Life is a wonderful title. I'll score it 9 out of 10. It had a lot of feels, a lot of emotional impact. I think it's such an important message today when there is so many difficulties, so much othering of people. And we need to tackle that. We need to look after each other as humanity. That's the message that I came across. Love this film. Love to know what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.